Welcome back to Doug Pagitt Radio on AM 950 and over at DougPagittRadio.com. Folks, Cathleen Falsani is known for many things. She is an author. She is a film consultant. She is a blogger and an opinion creator. She is a stander-upper. She stood us up on this radio program.
Oh, that's right.
But more than anything, she is a reconciler.
Oh.
She has solved that problem today. Kathleen Falsani, thank you for being on Doug Pagitt Radio.
I'm so ashamed.
Oh, we're only going to let you bask in that shame for about 18 or 20 more minutes.
Fantastic.
And then we're going to be over it. Well, Kathleen, for weeks now, we have been promising the people of the radio audience of this Marconi award-winning style radio program that you were going to help us to understand the life, the faith, the fame at the heart of Justin Bieber, and we were talking people into this a couple of weeks ago, and the Bieber the Bieber fever the Bieber fever was growing around here, and it's just been doing nothing but explode ever since then. People have been wanting to know who is this Justin Bieber? Why is he so famous, and why does he matter to any of the rest of us?
You know, Kathleen, real quick, the real crime was I mean, besides you not being on the show. But was that while we were waiting for you to call in, is having two 45-year-old men talk about Justin Bieber for 12 minutes.
It was a little creepy.
Oh, God,
I mean, we had launched into it, and I'll tell you, it's award-winning in its own right. Because I have listened to one Justin Bieber song in my life.
Which is one song more than I had listened to when I decided to write the book.
Okay, now that's what I'm interested in. With your very rich pedigree, with your very significant contribution to what it means to be not only a person of faith in this world, but just a good human being. What is it that attracted you to want to write a story about, as the subtitle is, the fame, faith, and the heart of Justin Bieber in this little book called Belieber, which I guess is a play on believer and his name, Bieber.
Well, and it's also what his fans call themselves, conveniently.
They do, they are believers?
Right, they call themselves believers, yes.
Huh.
Let's see. Well, two things.
Yes.
One, I have a really smart, really clever friend who lives in the same town as I do, and we were having lunch one day, sushi, in fact, and we were talking about book ideas for what I might be doing next. This is a year ago, almost exactly a year ago, in fact. And he said, I think you should write a book called The Gospel According to Justin Bieber. And I laughed because, first of all, very funny, and I thought he was kidding. But he said, actually, I don't think I am kidding. And now I promise you, if I was not a Justin Bieber at all, my friend David was absolutely not a Justin Bieber fan.
Really?
Totally, just, he's like, Grateful Dead, Bob Marley. That's sort of his genre, but certainly not young Canadian pop stars.
Are you sure there's not a secret life to this friend of yours that he hasn't told you about?
No, I'm not entirely sure there's not a secret life, but I don't think it involves 17, now 18-year-old boys, except his own son. Anyway, so he said that, and we started talking, and I knew who Justin was because I like to waste time on PerezHilton.com. But so I'd seen his picture and I'd seen his name, but I never read the stuff because it was obvious that it wasn't, I'm not his target demographic.
That's right.
But I knew that he was really cute and really young and Canadian, and that Usher had something to do with it. That's about all I knew. Until a year ago, there was a cover story in Rolling Stone magazine, and the only reason I had it is because I've been a subscriber forever. And I normally, again, probably would not have read a cover story about some pop star. But the readout underneath the headline, which I think was Superboy, was God, Girls, and Boatloads of Swag. And the juxtaposition there got my attention enough that I started to read it. And it was well written, but the kid's got a really compelling story, just personally, even if you take the faith element out of it, which I didn't know, and so I was hearing some of this for the first time. But then she asked him some questions related to his faith and some sort of hot-button issues at the intersection of faith and politics and culture. And I wasn't surprised necessarily by what he said, but I was by how he said it. And this is sort of my bailiwick, I pay attention to spirituality and culture, and I think I've acquired an ear for what is genuine and what isn't.
Well, we thought that's why you had stood us up a couple of weeks ago, that you
sensed that enough
on to us, that you had done a little research, and you had said,
hey. It was a medical issue. No, actually, you forgot to add T's to that long list of my accomplishments.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
But anyway, so when I read what he said, and I started thinking about it, and, there was a quality to what he was saying and how he was saying it that was rare to hear from, unfortunately, from a lot of believers with a V in general. Certainly rare to hear from a young Christian, and entirely unique in terms of a young Christian celebrity. So it was at least on my radar. And then, it grew from this conversation over sushi in Laguna Beach, where I live. And by the time we were done with our, whatever, maki rolls, I had texted my literary agent and told him the idea, and 2 weeks later I had a book contract. So that's how it came about.
Okay, so for people who don't track all of this, and I was a little surprised to find this out, Justin Bieber is like the most famous American with people 20 years old and younger, like the most famous Westerner in the world.
That's right.
Like his scope is enormous. Like, people really, really are into this guy, and his accomplishments are significant, to the degree that they are. But he hasn't done all that much, right? Like
musically.
No. So he has transcended his music, and somehow, as a 17, 18-year-old, has become a flashpoint, a connection point, an icon, in other words, for other people's hopes and aspirations. My daughter is she works at a juvenile delinquent center in Wisconsin, and mostly all teenagers under the age of 18 that are in there, girls. She said all of them, urban hip-hoppy girls, country girls, urban, city girls, all of it. They're all into Justin Bieber. Like, one of the things she said they all have in common is they all love Justin Bieber. And that's what sort of, I didn't know any of this stuff until, you decided not to show up on our show a couple of weeks ago. So I spent a lot of time reading about Justin Bieber, and I am really surprised
time well spent
at the. I'm surprised at the scope of his reach. Was that also surprising to you that we're that old and out of it?
Well, I was that old and out of it, and I didn't go to iTunes and download all his music until I got the nod from my agent that I was doing the book. I'd started to do the research, but his music, frankly, and this is not really a comment, it's not a slam on him, is the least interesting part of him so far.
I think so too. That's
mostly because he hasn't written much of it until now. Although he's been in the studio now for about 6 months, and he's got an album coming out in just a few weeks, in fact, called Believe with a V. Bless him. And I have to imagine. I know I actually know a couple of musicians who've been in sessions with him. And he's been writing a lot, and I'm hoping we'll see, lyrically at least, a little bit more of the heart of this young man revealed in it. But that said, I did know enough right out of the box, doing some research, that he had unbelievable numbers on Twitter a year ago. It was something like 7 million. Now I think it's 15 million, something like that. But between the time that the book went to the presses and actually came out 3 weeks later, he had like 1 million more or 2 million more followers.
Yeah, like he hasn't peaked. He's still on the rise.
It's crazy. I'm like, are there really more people out there that are to follow him? But I didn't realize how much his story had transcended cultural and even language barriers. I mean, I have heard from kids, because I spent a lot of time hanging out on Twitter, because that's where he lives, and that's where his band lives, trying to understand, what was so compelling about him, and read 10,000 of his tweets, and kids started following me and discovering me in the book, not having any idea that I was a 40-year-old lady.
Which is pretty much the nightmare of every teenager on Twitter, that the person they're following truly is a
right. They just were lucky that I wasn't a creepy one, at least not mostly.
That's right.
So, but I heard from kids in Saudi Arabia, in Africa, all over Asia, all over Europe, kids who were obviously, Buddhist or Muslim or, Orthodox or Jewish. I heard from a lot of kids in Israel, and to have that kind of a reach is not just about the music, it's about the story. And you could have perhaps argued that the Beatles were more about the music than their story, although I think it was a combination of the two. But with him, yes, he's adorable. And yes, the music is very catchy, but it's his story and one that he continues to tell with them in a way that I don't think we've really ever seen a new celebrity do it before.
Well, and after the break here, I'd like to ask you about that, because I think you've tapped into something that where Justin Bieber is sort of this microcosm of something that's happening with people in their 20s and especially teenagers really around the world, that there's a kind of youth culture that he inhabits and that he articulates, which really has great impact on not only religion, but even on broader society when people are thinking about how do we understand the cultural forces at play with teenagers and people in their 20s around the world. There's something kind of interesting going on with this guy that whether or not he lasts is, as long as those kind of values or those cultural touch points are significant. There's something for people who want to transcend the music and realize that being popular doesn't mean that someone is shallow.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So can you stick around here after the break and we'll talk a little bit more? All right. I kind of feel like somebody should head to your house and make sure you don't run out on us.
I promise I'm not moving.
Okay. All right. That's Cathleen Falsani. The book is called Belieber. You can find it at the places where they sell all of the finest in books. Stick with us here on AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota, and DougPagittRadio.com.